We're here with California State Assemblyman Bill Essayli. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we'd love to hear a little bit about what's going on in the state of California on the parental rights front. We know this is a huge battleground when it comes to this issue, and you are one of the few who are really knee-deep in this fight. What's the latest?
Yeah, so I think what's happening in California is a big deal. It's a national issue because what's happening in California is they're making a play for the kids.
Yeah.
Okay, they're teaching them, indoctrinating them in radical gender ideology. They're transitioning them socially at school, and they're keeping it secret from parents.
Right.
So this is my first term in the state legislature. This is an issue that I thought was important to shed a light on because a lot of this is being done behind closed doors in secret because the left doesn't actually want you to know what they're doing at the schools.
Right.
So last year I introduced a bill, Assembly Bill 1314, which said if a child requests to change their gender at school, you got to tell the parents.
Awesome.
That triggered this firestorm. I mean, they shut down my bill. They didn't give it a hearing. They called me every name in the book. And from that, what we did is we then worked with local school boards, and then we adopted local parental notification policies. One by one, district by district, it started catching fire. The first response by the governor and the attorney general was to sue these school districts. Can you believe that? They're using taxpayer dollars to sue school boards who want to keep parents in the loop about their own kids. It's insane.
Wow.
They lost all those cases, state and federal court. So now their latest maneuver is to pass this new state law, Assembly Bill 1955, which the governor just signed this week. And this is now going to override all of those school district policies. And it basically enshrines into law that teachers are not going to tell parents what's going on with the kids. So now the kids will be able to transition at school, and the teachers will not have to tell you.
So tell us more about this bill, because I'd love to know, if you can, who's behind it? Are there activist groups that are pushing this? Is Newsom really involved in it? What's the situation there?
Well, the main driver is the LGBT caucus in the state legislature has really been behind this. There's a group called Equality California. Okay. So there's this weird thing going on now where within the LGBT movement, they've sort of moved on from equality or marriage equality. And now they've gone all into this like radical gender ideology stuff, and they're trying to conflate the issues, which aren't the same to me. I think someone like me, I absolutely support, gay rights and all these issues. I'm like, but this has nothing to do with kids.
Right.
We're talking about children making life-altering decisions, changing their gender, and you're excluding the parents. This is very dangerous and harmful. I think what this is really about, there is a neo-Marxist agenda to it, and they really are making a play for the next generation. They want to brainwash the next generation of Americans. And if they can convince you that you can pick one of 20 genders, I think they can convince you of anything.
So do Californians support these types of radical bills?
They don't. The problem is the public doesn't really know what's happening. The left is very good at doing things behind closed doors. Like, for example, this initial policy where the schools were keeping the secret from parents was not a law. It was done as a regulation from the Department of Education. So they passed a regulation and sent it to the schools that says, you can't tell parents about this unless the child gives you consent.
Right.
That wasn't debated. That wasn't done in public or in sunshine. That was done in secret. So when we then try to shine some light on that and say, look what's happening, they say we're making it up. They accuse us of lying and all these things. And so the difficulty is just informing people what's going on within the schools and within the state government. We have no media in California, like real media. They don't cover any of this. So really we're left to social media, word of mouth, conservative outlets like the Daily Signal. So the hard part is just getting the word out. People are kind of checked out on a lot of issues. You turn on the news and you're just inundated. But I think this issue of parental rights really transcends politics, transcends party lines, transcends nationality. This parental rights movement, I think, should really be embraced as like the next major issue of the Republican Party.
Absolutely, and I think we're already seeing that happen in a lot of spaces across the U.S. There's a lot of grassroots activist groups out there, specifically family groups. Are you seeing a lot of that in California?
I'm seeing it on the grassroots level. I'll be honest with you, from a party level, they're not interested yet. There's this fallacy that the Republicans should not engage in quote-unquote social issues. And really where that's coming from is coming from the donors to the party. The donors tend to be more business-interested people. and they would rather that the party just, lower taxes and cut regulation, and that's it.
Yeah.
But, I don't answer to them, and I think we really have a bottom-up movement here.
Right.
And more importantly, the party should care about one thing, and that's winning elections.
Yeah.
This is a winning issue. 2/3 of Californians, regardless of political affiliation, believe parents should be in the know within their own kids.
Well, and I think if you look at the national level, there was an attitude like that in Washington several years ago, but after Glenn Youngkin won Virginia, there definitely was a movement among national politicians to recognize the importance of culture issues and parental rights issues. So I'm surprised it hasn't trickled down to California.
It is, again, from the grassroots level. It just hasn't been embraced from, the higher ups, I would say, completely. But I was very encouraged to see the new platform that President Trump was apparently very involved in drafting.
Yes.
And in our new, lean, mean platform, it talks specifically about this issue of parental rights and about protecting women, both in the locker rooms and in sports. I think that's really important.
It is really important. So, what is Governor Newsom's role in all of this? Because I think, he is more active, in my understanding, than we often are aware of.
It's hard to tell because he doesn't engage directly. I will say last year we had a really dangerous bill on a similar issue. It was going to require judges to basically favor a parent in a custody dispute who wants to transition the kid, and he did veto that bill.
Yes.
We didn't know if he would sign this or not. By him signing it, it really tells me that he's no longer running for president. I think they've given up on replacing Biden and running for president. If he was going to run for president, I don't think he would have signed this bill.
Right, and this bill you're referring to is about allowing kids to transition without parental consent.
Yes.
And for our listeners who might not understand what that means, that's not just social transitions, right? That's hormonal and surgical.
The medical stuff, mostly we're talking about social, but the medical is the next step.
Yes.
People don't know this. In California, we have a state law which should be challenged in court, if anyone's listening. It says if you're 12 years old or older, you get to make independent medical decisions without parental consent. That's the law in California.
Right.
You take your kid to the doctor's office, they will ask you to leave.
Right.
You're not allowed to be there with your kid. So now there's this effort, they're calling it community health care. They're trying to get medical services on all the high school campuses for abortion, for birth control, and I believe the next step will be hormone therapy.
Wow.
So if the kid's 12 years old, they're going to be able to get medical transition care without you ever knowing. You're not going to have to drive them to the doctor. They're going to offer it to them at school. That's what's coming.
That's enough to make people leave the state.
Leave public school.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know what? If they're not going to do school vouchers or give us choices, get your kids out of public school. They can learn virtually. You can homeschool them. You can go to private school. I think this is going to have a mass exodus out of public school and will hopefully defund the public school system.
Great. I'm a former homeschooler, so I support. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is a great conversation.
Thanks for having me.